Hey guys, I wanted to get into a little bit of a talk about something that I saw online, on Twitter specifically, that was actually kind of interesting to me. Now, what the talk was, it was about who is at fault for not getting voters what they want. So, this was a leftist chat that basically said that it was Republicans' fault that we don't have like gun control or something. And that's a very interesting thing to say for a lot of reasons. So I didn't really get my thoughts in order before I started this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go off the cuff here and just say how BS that is. Look, people say all the time, and I'm guilty of it too, that the American people want this or the American people want that. And it was the same thing with the speaker vote, right? Excuse me, jeez, I cannot speak. Let me slow down. Specifically, in regards to, hey, because I want this and because a lot of my fans want this, that means all Americans want this. And, you know, that's a huge logical fallacy. Now, for whatever they were talking about, I specifically said that the Democrats had control of the House, control of the Senate, and the presidency after the 2020 election. Argue about invalid ballots all you want, but that was the fact of the matter, is that they had more representatives in Congress, both branches, what have you. I'm like, you guys had control, and the Democrats didn't do anything. And they're like, yeah, but that was Manchin and Sinema's fault. Now, I actually went through, I got an Excel sheet of all the votes that Manchin, Sinema, and Angus King voted for, what the measures they voted for in like 2021. Okay? And Manchin shot down half of them. No, actually no, that's a lie. Guess what? Manchin and Sinema voted for Democrats 95% of the time. Specifically, it was like Angus King voted for alongside Democrats like 99% of the time. Sinema voted for Democrats like 95% of the time. And Manchin voted for Democrats like 93% of the time. Those numbers are not far off. I'm like outside of it by like maybe 1 or 2 percentage points. That is exactly what happened. These were Democrats voting against Democrat policies. And I noticed other things when I was going through it too. When I was going through the numbers, I was looking specifically at, and I mentioned this before, how many times a Democrat voted against the majority of all the Democrats. So if the majority of Democrats and the majority of Republicans joined together in a vote, obviously I didn't count that as Sinema or Manchin voting against the Democrat Party. If it was a minority of Democrats voting with Republicans, then obviously I counted that. And I excluded those ones. I excluded the ones where the majority of both parties voted on a resolution, or a minority of Republicans and the majority of Democrats voted on a resolution. I excluded those. For the ones where Sinema, Angus King, and Manchin went against the grain, that was less than 10% of all the others that weren't majority of both. I could show you the numbers. They're like, oh, it's Republicans' fault that none of these things got passed. When the Democrat Party has members that voted these resolutions down. And you can argue all you want about rhinos or dinos, Democrats in name only, which never really took off as well as rhinos did. But the fact of the matter is, Sinema, Angus King, Manchin, and Bernie Sanders all caucus with the Democrats. They are Democrat. They are liberal. Doesn't matter what their party says. When you vote for the Democrat Party, 95% of the time, on non-bipartisan legislation, you might as well just be a Democrat. Just put the D next to your name, man. There are no independents in the Senate. There aren't. It's just not a thing. Otherwise, the Democrats will just run someone suicidally against the current senator, which would be Angus King or Bernie Sanders, and let the Republican win, and then they'll just take the seat back in their blue state the next election season. Do you really think that either party wouldn't be willing to sacrifice that position for 6 years just to screw over someone else in their own party? They'll do it. Just look at McConnell. He sabotaged the Pennsylvania run. He sabotaged the Arizona run. He sabotaged the Nevada run. And he sabotaged the Georgia run. Why? Because those were all guys endorsed by Donald Trump. Why did he do that? To put money towards the Alaska Senate run to defeat Trump's senator pick there for McConnell's senator pick. Because let's face it, that race was between two Republicans. The Democrat never factored into the issue. Which, unrelated, is also why a House race didn't really matter that much. Because there was two Republicans in the House race and two Republicans in the Senate race versus one Democrat and one Libertarian. I believe in both of those races. Democrat won one because Sarah Palin wasn't popular, and a Republican, the current sitting member, won her race, despite the fact that Trump's pick should have won that race. Trump's picks should have won anywhere from 1 to 5 positions, but they didn't because they were all sabotaged by McConnell. Democrats, if Angus King really was against the Democrat agenda, despite him being an independent, they would just run a Democrat and knock him out. Because they know that in 2 years, they might pick up a senator seat that they didn't have before and make up for it. And even if they have to wait 6 years to kick out the current Republican senator, they don't care. Just look at what they're doing to Sinema. Sinema is like, I'm independent now. I'm doing the Angus King thing. And she only voted against Democrats 5% of the time. Or 3% of the time. I think I said 3%, but I think it was 5. But don't matter, man. Like I said, I was only like 1 or 2 percentage points off. I know it was in the high 90s. That's a fact. That is a fact. So they're running Democrat against Sinema, and they know their Democrat's going to lose just to take out Sinema, and that the Republican's going to win. They don't care about Arizona. Now you might argue that, oh, well, Sinema will take more votes away from the Republicans. Come on, man. Come on, really? If you're saying that, then you're also the kind of person that believes that Kennedy, a lifelong Democrat, whose family is known Democrats, you think that Kennedy is going to take away more votes from Trump than he's going to take from Biden. And we all know that's BS. That's BS. Sinema's going to lose, the Democrats going to lose, and the Republicans going to win. Because a lot of people like Sinema, and a lot of people are going to be upset that the Democrat Party is trying to screw her over, her fans, who didn't like the gun control bills coming through. And they're going to vote for her, despite the fact that they know that she's probably going to lose, because they're not going to vote for just some random Democrat that they put up. It's the same exact reason that Schiff's going to lose his election, too. Because while Schiff's up in the polls right now, for his senator seat, they're not going to vote for a white dude who doesn't even live in the state. Yeah, that just came out. If you guys heard about that. Shifty Schiff, does not live in California. He bought a little condo there, and I think he actually lives in like Massachusetts. And his two opponents, they're going to campaign on that, man. They're going to be like, how can you elect a guy to represent you in the Senate, to represent our entire state when he doesn't even live here? He bought a small little condo in California and listed it as his primary residence. Meanwhile, his wife, and his kids live in like all the way on the East Coast. Some random Democrat in Arizona is not going to represent Arizona better than Sinema did. And while a lot of Democrats will vote against her just because she doesn't have the D next to her name anymore, they weren't voting for her because she was because of her positions. They were voting for her because of that D. So she's going to split the vote. Same as Kennedy. But when you say the Republicans are at fault for whatever policy not going through, it's BS. Because your own candidates are voting against it. And they vote with Democrats 95% of the time against Republicans, the majority of Republicans. And when I was going through those bills and finding that out, there were sometimes you would see something weird going on. Like all 49 of the caucusing Democrats and independents voted one way on a bill. And you would notice I say 49. And then all 50 Republicans voted another way on the bill. And then for some reason, Schumer voted with the Republicans. Yeah, let me just say that again. The majority leader of the Senate, on a few occasions, voted against his entire party. And none of them voted the same way the majority leader voted. No one ever noticed. No one ever brought it up. No one ever noticed that Schumer occasionally votes against the majority of his party. So a lot of people are like, oh, it was the filibuster. It was the filibuster. Yeah. When filibuster only matters occasionally. But a lot of the times, it's a Democrat voting against all the other Democrats. 50-50, 50-49, 51-49. One Democrat will just bite the bullet, vote with the Republicans, and torpedo a bill. It doesn't even matter who. Because the Democrats don't actually want to help you. They don't want to put, or, no. Here's the thing. Maybe occasionally they do. But what I specifically said is Democrats don't want what you want. You progressives. You progressives out there. You socialists. You're like, we need universal health care. Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they did not vote for you. They did not vote to give you universal health care. They did not vote to ban guns. They did not vote to do what you wanted them to do because they don't want what you want. And saying that, I gotta get over here. 1 second. Okay, I'm good. Okay. Blaming all your problems on one party doesn't help. I get like these people are trying to encourage people to vote Democrat. But if you were a Democrat voter, okay, and you voted straight Democrat in 2018, 2016, in 2020, in 2022, like, you had just been completely loyal to one party, and you've just voted straight down the ticket Democrat every single time. And there were several times where the Democrats had majority control, and they didn't even bother to try to push a bill for stuff that you wanted. Like, they don't even try to push bills that these people supposedly want. And then you're going out there and saying, but it's all the Republicans' fault. Hey, say what you will about MTG, Boebert, Matt Gaetz. They'll push a bill to the floor that they know will lose, specifically to show, hey, these are the people who will vote against what you want. These are the people that don't want what you want. A lot of progressives are like, we gotta ban assault rifles, whatever the hell that means. An assault rifle is a fully automatic rifle, which are already very, very restricted and are never used in a mass shooting. Never. You don't have fully automatic rifles being used in mass shootings. You have semi-automatic rifles being used in mass shootings. But they want to ban assault rifles, when the majority of shootings are also done by semi-automatic pistols. Why? Because they're concealable. Right? And because they're usually done by gangs. So when these guys keep saying that, hey, it's the Republicans' fault that we don't have these things, or someone else says it's the Democrats' fault that we don't have these things, well, what? It's all BS, man. It's BS, specifically because they could push a bill to the floor and have people vote on it, and if your party refuses to vote on it, like if they put up an assault rifles ban to the House floor, if the Democrats really wanted that, they would just do it. But they don't, because they know several members of their party will vote against it. So when you have a Democrat just a regular Democrat who's not in a government position saying it's the Republicans' fault that we don't have an assault rifle ban, you know they're full of BS. Because if Democrats in the House or in the Senate really wanted that, just bring it to the floor. Just bring it to the floor. The Democrats who will vote against it will vote against it. And if the will of the party is to ban assault rifles, then all those guys will be voted out. But Democrats are not going to do that because they don't want those people voted out. The Democrats on the House floor will not bring an assault rifles ban to the floor because they know people will vote against it, and those people who vote against it might get voted out. And they don't want them voted out. If I have to keep repeating that 1,000 times, I will. I'm going to go in circles about this, but guys, they don't want what you want. The rhinos don't want what Republican voters want. I'm not like... And sometimes the Republican voters or the Democrat voters in one area want one thing that the rest of the country doesn't want. I've been voting mostly Republican. Like 90% of the people I vote for are Republican. At least for right now, until I find Republicans who have policies that I don't like. And once they start voting against stuff that the majority of the party wants, people will be like, well, they should be primaried. And again, I had to bring up John James. He basically said that, hey, I'll vote for Jordan as long as he pushes for funding for our military to resupply our reservists. Not to start a war. He didn't say he wanted to start a war. He just wanted to make sure that Michigan's military had supplies. And people are like, well, we gotta primary him. How are you gonna primary a guy if the majority of Republicans in Michigan agree that our military should be funded? You're not gonna primary the guy. Because the Republicans in Michigan might not want what the Republicans in West Virginia want. It's an amazing concept. But, like, if someone like in West Virginia, let's say a representative, a House representative in West Virginia said, hey, I won't vote for Jordan because I want Michigan's military to be funded. Do you think West Virginians are going to care about Michigan's reservists? No, they're going to care about West Virginians' military. But when John James is speaking for Michigan residents, and he's like, for Michigan, we want to make sure that Michigan's reservists have enough ammo to practice on the range, and that our flight missions or practice flight missions are taken care of. Since we're right on the border with a foreign nation, we might need the scramble or jets. Say if they hijacked something in Canada, flew it down here, then we're going to want our airplanes to be able to deal with that. Unlikely as it is, but that's that, man. But all these progressives that are like, assault rifles ban, universal health care, get rid of the electoral college, all that stuff. Your representatives don't want that. They don't. That's why they never push through a bill, try to push through a bill, even though they know it's going to lose. Because if the majority of Americans actually want that, they'll try to push that bill so that it will fail, so that people know who to vote against in the next election. But they either don't care about what the majority of Americans want, or you have an extremist view and the majority of people don't want it. And as it stands right now, it looks like Trump's going to win, because the majority, or at least the plurality, that's not polarity, plurality, sure, I can't say that word, it's a very hard word to say, want Donald Trump. That's just the end of it, man. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. They don't represent you, or they don't represent you specifically. Bye, guys.